All right, welcome everyone to the Portland Utility Board meeting. Under Portland City Code and state laws, the Portland Utility Board is holding this meeting electronically. Board members and relevant city staff are attending remotely, electronically, or by phone, and the city has made it available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is being recorded. The public will also have an opportunity to provide comments during the public comment portion of the agenda and can also provide written testimony to the board by emailing utilityboard@portlandoregon.gov. So PUB believes and acts upon anti-racist principles. In our meeting spaces and interactions with PUB, while every person has the right to share their personal perspective, we stand against wrongful conduct, particularly any conduct that is targeted towards people that are made vulnerable by systemic inequities. And this means stepping up as a community when there is wrongful conduct and fostering a space of learning and growth. And so putting our principles into action means speaking up, speaking out. It means that each person is empowered to maintain the culture of this board, the Portland Utility Board, and to focus on the impacted individual or population, condemning the conduct, not the person.
My name is Amy Archer Masters, and I'll quickly run through the meeting guidelines. Please state your name before you speak, and if appropriate, who you're addressing, or if you're just addressing the group. The chat box is only viewable by myself, so please limit to technical and logistical issues, including signing up for public comment, asking for technical assistance, or reminding us if you've been waiting to speak and have not been called on. The raise hand function is primarily used by the board. I may lower your hand once you've begun speaking, just to maintain the flow of conversation. During public comment periods, the public can also raise their hands and you'll be called on when appropriate. If you're connecting by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. Videos may be turned on when speaking if desired. It is not required. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Members of the public will be muted except when giving public comment. And if you're connecting by phone, you'll need to press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. Public comment, as mentioned, will be taken during the comment period early in the meeting. You can sign up through the chat or raise your hand during that period in the agenda. It's also taken just prior to any formal board vote after a motion has been made and seconded by board members. The meeting is being recorded. Pass it back to you, Robin.
All right, and so the primary topic for today for our agenda is going to be an update on debt recovery and financial assistance. And then after that, we should be able to conduct some of our required business as it is the first meeting of the fiscal year. And that'll include co-chair recommendations as well as reviewing our governing documents. Are there any disclosures of communication by PUB members? All right, I'm not seeing any raised hands. On to public comment. Amy, has anyone submitted public comment previous?
I have not received anything in advance, and I don't have any chats so far. So if you're in the room, feel free to raise your hand.
All right, not seeing any hand raises from the public. We can go on to our first thing that we need to do, which is review and approval of the draft minutes for our June 15th PUB meeting. So just take a moment to review those and raise your hand if we need to update All right, we are flying through this. Looks like no hand raises. So with that, the minutes from the June 15th meeting are approved. And we will go on to our first topic, which is debt recovery. Give me just a second to figure out my screens. All righty. Two more seconds.
Am I free to share, Robin? Okay. Hello, everyone. I'll get my screen set up quickly and then we can jump in.
All right, and as our speaker gets set, thank you, by the way, I found where I was on the screen. But yeah, we're gonna have a little background information with Quisha Light from the Portland Water Bureau. They're going to provide an update regarding the topics of debt recovery, and we're gonna follow that with some Q&A. So if possible, we're gonna see if we can make sure that we are at least wrapping up in the next 50 minutes. So when you are ready, go ahead.
Sorry, I think I need to stop and reshare other screen for you all. Put it on the wrong one there. Forget that with Zoom. All right, are you all seeing that full screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, hello, everyone. As stated, my name is Quisha Light. I am the Customer Service Director for the Portland Water Bureau. And I assume everyone knows, but I always just like to say we at the Water Bureau, while customer service is based in the Water Bureau, we provide customer service for both Water Bureau and BES. So today I want to just provide you an update on where we are with debt recovery and what's been going on with financial assistance, where we're planning to go with debt recovery and financial assistance. And I believe along the way, we'll address some of the things that I know that this board has raised with some of your recommendations and some of your questions in the past. So feel free to stop me, and I'm trying to make sure I can monitor everything, but you can jump in and let me know if I'm missing, if someone has a hand raised. But I also just want to take a moment. I have with me Kenny Scott. He is the new financial assistance manager. Our former financial assistance manager, Corbett White, retired after almost 31 years at the Bureau, and we're excited to have Kenny join us. And hopefully you will get some opportunity to interact with him sometime soon, but we have a lot of good plans for just changing and growing the financial assistance program at the Bureau. With that, I also like to make sure I level set in the conversation and that we all are understanding how we're defining the problem and the solution. I think you were able to see this deck. I hope you had an opportunity to look at it. So I won't go verbatim over things. I'll move through at a pace. And like I said, feel free to stop me with any questions. When we look at this, there's no doubt, water, human right, we've got to have it. It's necessary for life. And on the same hand, on the other side, we have the reality that that safe and reliable water is not free, but everything that we have to do to make sure that water is stored, treated, delivered, and it gets to customers in that safe and reliable manner is costly. That investment to make all that happen is costly to maintain the infrastructure. And then at the same time, we are trying to make sure that we remain financially stable as bureaus. So that we can keep meeting those needs of our customers, of our community. And a big part of that sometimes becomes raising rates. It becomes dealing with the realities of disconnection, because that's the nature of the way the system has been constructed. And at the same time, we know that when we put people in a situation where when people are put in a situation where their water is shut off or disconnected, then this can create some health and housing risks. So we are settled around. We know that this is the problem that we are constantly having to deal with. And I think the last time I was here, I talked with you about how we're constantly having to balance the needs of the systems and the needs of our customers so much. So that, and some days you get that balance right, and some days one thing is more dominant than the other. And we know that it's going to take a holistic approach to coming up with solutions. There is no one thing that's going to solve for this. We know that we are doing more work when it comes to our engagement. We're trying to work more on being proactive, whether it's educating customers on our services and what we have to offer, or if it is us, going out into the community, engaging strategically with the right partners so that we can ensure that that our services are being distributed equitably, and that people have access to the resources that we have to offer. It means, forming those right community partnerships. It means getting in alignment around how we understand and view the data that we have. Are we sharing data appropriately across, across the city and the state? Are we effectively using that data to help us understand what our customers need from us? And so, we've got to balance that. We have to balance the efficiencies. Are we being operationally efficient and trying to do everything we can with our internal services to ensure that we can provide affordable water and sewer and stormwater service? Are we sharing all these efficiency measures with our customers so that they have the right equipment in their homes and they learn and understand their consumption? And then rates. How should we be thinking about rate design? Do we need to have fee caps for a certain customer group so that we're not continuing to contribute to the unaffordability of the water system when we know that some people are struggling? Are our discounts appropriate, or are we over incentivizing and not supporting and offering assistance to others? So this solution is we're going to have to. It's like a Rubik's Cube is the way I look at it. And you're trying to find and get all those things matched up right, but it is going to take a bunch of different things. And this is just a few things that will come together so that we can deliver that value to our customers and that we can provide them affordable water, sewer, stormwater service. So what has happened since we returned to shutoffs? So we returned to shutoffs we started the process of returning to shutoffs last July. We had our first disconnects to start happening in December. And at that time, when we came here, last time I came here, not too long after I started with the Bureau, we were probably about 26 million, well, 24 million, I think, somewhere in there with debt. And so since last year, where we are is the number of accounts that we have in arrears in total, that hasn't really decreased. Some of those balances have come down. So you can see we're down to 21.9 million. We're a little bit less than that right now, but we're still around 21 million. And we came down significantly in the last month and a half or so with $1.6 million decrease. And on some of that, we attribute to a lot of outreach that we've started to do where we're just actually calling customers, reaching out to them saying, hey, we see you're behind. We're looking at doing more disconnects and lowering our threshold, trying to have that conversation with customers to get them on payment arrangements, because we have no desire to disconnect people. That is not what we want to do, but we've done a lot of work with just trying to do the outreach and getting people to make payments. We've changed some things in our system that you will see. But what we're finding is the number of accounts it continues to go up and it doesn't come down. We're still not seeing enough people that are on payment arrangements. For residential customers, the arrears still are too high. We've got 13,000 residential single family customers who owe roughly $13 million. And as you can see, that median account balance is about $594. And then, our financial assistance group, we have about 1,400 of those customers who owe approximately 1.5 million of that 13 million that we mentioned. And that number has increased since last September because we didn't do disconnections with financial assistance customers. We've left them out. We've left out multifamily over this time. We've just been doing single family. And then we were only doing accounts that were over $1,000. So as you can see, we've had some of that come down, but not a lot. And this is, and even though we have received LIWA funds of about 1.6 million, we've received over 2 million in ARPA funds, but we're not necessarily seeing the improvement that we think we need to see for the benefit of the system, for the benefit of our customers overall. And a lot of that is because people are not reaching out. And so, we're like I said, we're increasing our efforts to reach out to customers, but we're not getting enough of those customers reaching out to us. And even when they are, many are not being successful on their payment arrangements. And then we have commercial accounts, which are also pretty high. The average past due debt has been around 2.8 million, and it's been wavering over the last 2 years around between 2.6 and 2.9 million. And, so, commercial customers is all of it is industrial, hospitals, restaurants, all of the ones that you see here. And we have about 780 accounts that are subject to disconnection at the $300 threshold level that we are going to be going to. So, it is, and out of that 780 right now, we only have 130 of those that have payment arrangements. And then some of these commercial properties that are mixed use, they're not subject to automatic shut off. So if you've got like apartments on top and businesses on the bottom, we use a very manual process because we want to make sure that we're not impacting the residents and in those buildings. So we really work closely with property owners, and we take our time and before we do any type of disconnection with commercial mixed use properties, and also with multifamily, the same thing. We don't use an automatic sort of disconnection process where you're 56 per day, if you're 56 days behind, and we don't follow necessarily a set regimen in that way with mixed use and multifamily. And then we have about 124 of the commercial meters that are just not on, or we've already pulled those for various reasons. So, I mean, the story here is our residential single family and our commercial accounts are still pretty high. We need to continue to work to get those down. We need to particularly work on the financial assistance group, because this group has not faced any form of disconnect in almost 4 years. They're just not reaching out at all. And we can't help anyone if they're not contacting us. And we're sending letters and we're sending all the information, but sometimes, that's just not enough. But what we do see is that the amounts in arrears for financial assistance for multifamily, those have increased, where we see single family, they started to come down, even though the number of accounts that tend to be behind are about the same. At least the balance for single family has started to come down. But for financial assistance and multifamily, we're seeing an increase in that debt. Any questions? Because I know I'm already feeling like that's a lot. All right. So payment arrangements. I mentioned this a moment ago. Our payment arrangements, we've had more people, of course, going and setting up payment arrangements. But as you can see here, they terminate or they default at a rate of about 2 to 1, as far as defaulting versus actually successfully completing a payment arrangement. Many people, of course, are calling and setting up that payment arrangement to avoid disconnection. One of the things that we have found that has helped is we put in a new payment function where if a customer calls in, we're able to send them through our interactive voice response system. We're able to send them separately off where they can make a payment. And this is actually, we've seen the payments in this manner increase. So we're hoping that now that customers when they call to make that arrangement and we say, we've got to have some payment today, then they're able to go make that payment. We're seeing more use of the pay by text, but particularly the IVR has become a really popular function. And so people are on the phone, they get to solidify their payment arrangement, make a payment, set it up all in one, because what we were finding is people were doing the promise to pay, and of course they didn't pay. And then we were back in the disconnection cycle with them. So the IVR has really helped And we're going to continue to monitor that to see if that continues to help drive down the rate of the debt for everyone. We're about to start a process where we're going to be providing customers reminders via text. So if you have a payment arrangement, you'll be able to get text messages from us reminding you your payment is becoming due, because we know those little nudges make a difference for customers. They forget sometimes, and they default, not intentionally. There's just a lot of things going on and people are trying to balance a lot of things in their life and they forget. So we're excited to be introducing the text function. We believe that's going to help customers be a little bit more successful with their payment arrangements. So they'll be able to click a link and just go make their payment once they get that text. We are seeing that right now, we're planning to go to this $300 threshold level. So we were at 1,000. We're now going to go to 300, and we're setting 300 because we believe this is going to be our new normal. In the past, the threshold for shut off was $115. We don't think that's too low. But as we look at bills, if we set the threshold too high, people are getting behind a lot faster. And if we have it where we can catch people before, and $300 is about around that average for our customers. So if we can catch them before they are 2 bills behind, we are much more successful with getting customers back on track. So right now we have over 7,000 accounts that are $300 past due and without a payment arrangement. And we are offering short, medium, long-term payment arrangements. Some go up to 36 months and some businesses go up to 48 months. We are trying to work with customers to help make them successful and to make the payment affordable, because I don't want to put someone on 12 months and they're having to pay a $200 a month payment plus keep up their regular current bill. It's just not possible for many people. So we're trying to break that payment down into smaller amounts and really get customers to focus on their current bill and just staying current, because even if you are staying current, we can work through the payment arrangement. Just stay current on your bill is what we're trying to get them to focus on. But, we use all types of communications when it comes to reaching out to customers. And at the end of the day, as much as I hate to come to that conclusion, disconnection is the thing that gets customers to engage with us. We can send out the bill, we send out notices, we send out messages, we send out newsletters, we do courtesy calls, we do door tags, we work with community agencies, we send emails. I mean, we're doing all these things, but until that customer gets that disconnection notice, most are not contacting us. And we've heard so many in the last year say, well, you weren't disconnecting, so I wasn't bothered. And now we are seeing people are saying, okay, the Water Bureau is getting back to normal, so I need to pay my bill. So just to make it clear, what we're changing is we're setting, as I stated, that debt recovery threshold at $300. And that's going to be for all commercial and residential customers, including those enrolled in our financial assistance program. So we're bringing everyone in so we can try to get this under control for everyone. And so, while financial assistance customers haven't been subject to disconnection, they will, because we've got to get customers contacting us so we can get them on the payment arrangements. We can figure out how to help them. And we will, and our change for all accounts essentially that are 56 days or more past due and have a balance over $300. So you'll know that's basically who is subject to this. It won't apply to multifamily residential accounts. Again, we have to exercise a lot more caution when we're dealing with these accounts, because the residents living in those apartments or in that duplex or whatever, they are not usually responsible for the bill. So we're having to do a lot of work to reach out to landlords and everything. So it's not fair, because those tenants could be paying their rent, which includes water, and the landlord hasn't taken care of things. So we really don't put it, it's not a part of this automatic process, and it's not a part of this this $300 threshold. We are doing a lot of active outreach with the multifamily accounts right now, and we have seen those debts start to come down as we've been doing more outreach with them. So July 19th, our system will be configured for the new lower threshold of $300. And then the earliest that we could see shutoffs from this change would be, those would be around August 3rd. So right now, what my team is doing is out putting on door tags and other things. So, and I'll share that in a moment. We are expecting first cutoffs from the financial assistance class. That could come sooner, but again, we started doing those notices and reaching out to folks, trying to avoid them getting the disconnect notices. And we'll be doing reminder notices and other things will start to go out in mid to late August. And then we'll start to, of course, see more of those shutoffs from financial assistance in late August, early September. But you know, we're doing everything we can. As you can see here, like they're getting those courtesy calls. And as you'll see on the next slide, or you've probably seen already, they're getting the outbound calls from us. A special letter went out to the financial assistance customers, or yes, it went out this week, I think, for the financial assistance customers. We've got, you know, still our new brochures in multiple languages, the letters in multiple languages. We have reminder notices and others that would go out. We're putting door tags. We're doing everything we can to avoid people facing that shutoff come August or September, depending on where their billing cycle and how it falls. And this is just saying, you know, we're using the red door hangers, which my field teams are out hanging on people's doors. So again, we're trying to, and this is for people that are already 35 days or more past due and over that $300. You know, just another way for you to be able to see, and some of the information, there's just a lot of information here so that you can, so that you all could have it more so for pre-read. But right now we're still just translating in the 4 languages. We are working to try to do more there. It can be really challenging to have to, you know, when you're trying to send out one single document or have one single door hanger or what have you. So we're trying to figure out how we do more languages and so that it's easy and it works for customers. So, but we will, and we will translate into other languages if it's requested. And no fees are associated with these door hangers. So, you know, financial assistance accounts are one of the things that people will be able to do is they can qualify for the match dollars. And that's a program where if customers can have up to a $500 payment matched by us. So match is available. If they're able to pay $200, we'll match their $200. Their LIWA dollars are running thin. They are due to run out. We think at the latest we'll have some in maybe September, but you never know with those dollars. They could run out sooner. And then we have the crisis voucher that is available to financial assistance customers up to $500. So, you know, there are resources available to get people back on track, and we just are hoping that they will reach out to us. Let's see. So as we think and look forward, as we think about disconnections and how do we minimize them, again, payment arrangements and assistance funds are our main resources to be able to assist customers. But we also think about, we only do disconnects between 8:30 and noon. So that we can try to make sure that we are turning people back on the same day, because it takes a lot of time to go out, do the disconnect, and maybe give people time to pay and then go back out. So we limit the amount and the time that we do disconnects. We're in, and along those lines, you know, we pay attention to the weather. So if we're having very hot weather, we will stall our disconnects and won't do those. You know, of course, if it's really cold or things like that, we try not to, we don't do disconnects. So we're also, we've established some really clear written terms and conditions for our financial assistance program, because, you know, we had, that program did not have the terms and conditions documented. And we really want to be clear that customers understand what it takes to be on the program, and not only what it takes to be on the program, what they are entitled to on the program, because we find that sometimes people don't even know that they can get up to $500 crisis voucher. So sometimes they don't even know that. So the terms and conditions let them know what's available to them on the program, how the program works. So we've just documented that. We are exploring some policies around protecting medically vulnerable customers, exploring changes to our fee structure. And we've been talking about particularly fee caps for customers on the discount program. This is something that we see with some of the other utilities with that I think have some really strong discount programs. And we're also looking at how do we deal with some of this significantly aged and uncollectible debt on our active accounts, because right now we tend to really only write off or send accounts to collections or go through any of that process when an account is final. But we have some customers right now who have some really large current balances. And so we're really looking at, we had a pandemic and we put a moratorium in place to help our customers through that time. And a lot of debt built up. And some people are not going to be able to come out of that and pay that debt off. So we need to figure out how we can deal with that debt on those active accounts. And then we're evaluating how we can potentially redistribute some of the financial assistance program dollars that are just underutilized. You know, while we want to work on getting more people on the program, there may be other ways that we can look at it. So we're trying to think through, how do we deal with, you know, if we're not giving out as much in crisis vouchers, can we think about how we use that money and that in other ways? So those are some of the things that we're thinking about. And, you know, when I think about the single family discount program, just in and of itself, we're looking at categorical eligibility. So, and really being clear, if you're getting SNAP or if you're getting SSI, you know, we're not spending a lot of time processing those applications. And in that same vein, just allowing people to self-certify that this is their income, and then we audit on the back end so that we get people through that application processing a lot faster. So these are things that we're really trying to move forward so we can kick off at the beginning of the year. And then at the same time, there's also the need to look at, and it's the thing that we don't sometimes want to talk about, what should get someone removed from the program? Because some of our customers just don't ever think about paying their bill. And we can't have that. There's no interaction, there's just nothing. And even if the minimum is $20, and, you know, if you can't, we can work through that. But what we're finding is customers on financial assistance sometimes are just checked out of really reaching out and thinking and paying anything. So we're trying to understand that a little bit more. And if, you know, to see what type of conditions or criteria do we need to deal with that. You know, we're growing our outreach program. This is something that Kenny is spending a lot of time thinking through right now. You know, who are the partners we've had, but who are some of the new partners that really have a good hold and are grounded in the community in ways that maybe some of the partners we're working with right now just aren't. We tend to always go to the more known and larger groups, but there are smaller nonprofits that are having an amazing impact in our community that we are looking to reach out to. And then we're looking to do more data, right? Using our data a lot more so that we can understand where we're seeing disconnects more. How do we deal with how do we match that up with the census tract data that we have, so that we can say, okay, we know that these are areas where the income tends to be less. And so, you know, how does that inform how we shape our programs and the offerings that we provide from an affordability standpoint? So we're just really trying to learn to use our data more and allow that to drive our decision making, match it up with the qualitative conversations, because you can't just assume that the numbers are going to tell you everything, but we want to match that up well with what our customers are saying to us, what their behaviors are showing us, and then what behaviors do we want to help them have. Is also really critical, and it's but it's matching the numbers, and it's bringing people in and having conversations with them. So we're really trying to figure out how we can engage more with our customers from whether it's focus group standpoint, but asking enough questions so we get some more of that qualitative data to understand what they need from us, what problems we can really help them solve. And so I've spoken about categorical eligibility, so I won't spend any time there. One last piece that I just want to share that we've been working through with a team from the University of Chicago is we're trying to develop a pricing discount pilot that will essentially allow us to test out different ranges on different percentages of of discounts on our bill, so that we can understand customers' ability and willingness to pay. And I hope to come back and be able to share more about that in the next couple of months. But essentially, this is an opportunity for us to get customers paying their current bill and in a more consistent manner, and we believe cut back on some of the collection and the uncollectible debt that we face at times. So like I said, I hope I'll be back in a couple of months to share more about that pilot. We're trying to put some more meat on the bones around it right now. And then our timeline again for just the upcoming changes. So this summer, we will be lowering the threshold. We are resuming recovery for all accounts. And we have, our financial assistance communications going out, our terms and conditions in place. We'll be making more outbound calls. We'll have a small group of our call center reps who are going to be pulled aside to specifically focus on outbound work and trying to help us move, hopefully get customers to engage, get them set up on the right type of payment arrangement, and get them on a successful track. We have RAMP implemented. I know Sarah Santner's talked with you all about that program a few months ago. So RAMP is now in place. And then in the fall, we'll be implementing mobile service orders. All of this will be really good to help us streamline our process as it relates to debt recovery, whether it's, the process to be since we'll be having mobile service orders, it'll make it easier for us to get people reconnected, get those payments noted in the system, all those things. And then we'll, the fall will also bring probably more of that high customer contacts, because it's likely we will see increased shutoffs. One thing about it, we've been running at about an 85% turn-on rate within a 48 to 72 hour period. So once a person has experienced shutoff within usually within 48 hours, 85% of customers are turned back on. And then in the winter, we hope to finalize some of the changes around our financial assistance program with the self-certification. And we'll hopefully have any decision on any recommendations and proposals that we'll put forward for the fee changes that we think would be good. And then just evaluating what we're doing and seeing how things are working. So I think that is it for me. Any questions? I know that was a lot. I'm going to stop sharing. Maybe. Oops.
All right, and thank you for that. Yeah, Amy, if you would, this is a question and answer portion, but perhaps get rid of the screen sharing, and that way we can kind of chat as a group. Yeah, anyone have a question, go ahead, raise their hand or input.
Nothing.
While everyone gets their questions ready, I was going to ask, is the Portland Water Bureau able to automatically enroll people in financial aid, or does it have to be explicitly asked of them? And like with something like that, assist in.
Oh, you cut off, Robin. I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, I can repeat myself.
I think I got most of the question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It sounds like you got most of the questions, so I will let you take it away.
So we don't have automatic financial assistance. I wish we did. That's where that data sharing piece becomes really critical. You have places like in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and some other places where state and county agencies share data. And that is, these customers are enrolled in SNAP. And so they send a note to the water utility, the electric utility, and they're able to enroll those people immediately in their programs. And they have roughly, when I've talked with those utilities, they have roughly 12 to 13,000 people in their program every year because of that automatic process and that data sharing. And that's what it's going to take, data sharing, for us to be able to do something like that. We have to really get to that. And that's something that Kenny and I have definitely been talking about. How do we, and I know it's a conversation that has happened with different people at the city, within the city. So I think we could do so much within the city, but boy, if we could do that on a state level, that would be amazing.
Looks like Lorraine has a question. Go ahead.
Thanks, Robin. Hi, Keisha. Welcome, Kenny, to the city of Portland. And I'm not sure if you're coming from out of town, but if you are, welcome to Portland and the Pacific Northwest. So I was going through the presentation, and this is not for you all to go and do research. I'm just curious. It popped up to me in your earlier slide, one of your initial slide, the problem, right? Water is all right, and you said that it's safe and reliable water is not free. And then the next answer to the other question, that shutoffs can create health and housing risk. If we can compare apples to apples, I was just wondering, what is the cost of the health and housing risk in comparison to the cost of reliable and safe water? Just an interesting thought I had. I'm just thinking, what is the cost in each case? And cost could be defined as how does it impact the community, right? That costs the community, the cost of dealing with the situation that comes out of that health and housing risk, right? To clean it up or to whatever it is. That's what I was just thinking, right? Because we tend to think about, costs in oh, it costs money to do this, but there's also a cost if it's not done too, right? The impact. I was just curious about that, and I'm not sending you on a goose chase down a hole. That was a thought of mine. And you mentioned some of the reasons, you threw out some of the reasons about what's driving arrears and stuff. But I'm curious to know, how is I'm making an assumption? Do you all track reasons about why people are not paying their bills? Is there like, or not? Let me leave it at that.
No, we don't. I don't, we have some data that has come from like, I think some of the work that was done with the Afloat program when that was done, but we have a survey out right now where there is a question that, asks basically, are you experiencing difficulties paying your bill? And is that something we track right now? No, it is not. That's where those focus groups and having some of these conversations, we have the conversation, we have, I think we can say we have the anecdotal data from my call reps and, from Kenny's team, where customers are telling you what their struggles are. And that could be, I've lost my job. I've experienced illness. And then it could be the ones that we have heard too, right? You weren't shutting off, so I'm not paying my bill. I haven't been paying my bill because you weren't shutting me off. We've heard that quite a bit too. And now I didn't know you were back doing this, so now I'm paying my bill. So it's, I think it's more anecdotal. We have not tracked, but those are some of the things that we know we need to get. That's why what I was mentioning earlier around just the data, but we need qualitative data and we need the quantitative data. We need to be able to talk to customers, hear more, around what their real struggles are, because we can make it up in our heads.
Thanks, Keisha.
Mhm.
Keisha, I'm sorry. Why I'm
Oh,
saying
you're
Keisha?
fine. No
I
worries.
had oral surgery, so I'm talking with a kind of fat lip here, but thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I see Alexis's hand.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm having all sorts of internet issues. Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. As I was looking at the PowerPoint, the deck in advance, I had jotted down some questions and you answered basically all of them in the
Okay.
presentation. So thank you so much. I have two questions, well, maybe three, because you mentioned the data sharing as being particularly important. I'm actually curious if there is something, if you think that there's something that Pub could do to help support that, whether that's raising it in some of our priorities and communications with City Council or elsewise, just kind of curious there. And then I have two questions more kind of in the data, which is how many of the, or sorry, nope, you already answered that one, but is the process and the shutoff threshold the same for commercial and residential entities? And then and I think that's the case. And if so, can you explain a little bit about why it's the same, and or if like the size of the business has any potential implications on kind of like having a range of different thresholds depending on the kind of customer it might be? But thank you so much for the presentation. Really, really helpful.
No, thank you for the questions. And I'm going to try to make sure I get them all. As I'll start with the first one around the data sharing. I believe this is just a critical piece going forward for all of us. We have to get better about sharing information, and because it reduces, it not only makes it easier for us to reach people, it reduces the time tax that people put in to go from agency to agency to agency, filling out the same paper, answering the same questions over and over. And people who are truly in poverty, or people who are even new to that reality, give up. They say it's not worth it because we tax them through their time so much, they just don't have enough. So the data sharing could really remove a lot of that from people, and we could be helping more people. So I'm a big believer, if you can lend a voice to that, I will take your voice being lent to it, to be honest. But I think because I think it's just that critical for us to truly have that impact and know that we're reaching the right people, because in many ways, sometimes we're guessing about, people can play around with our application and play around with what's income and not income, but they can't do that as much when they're applying for SNAP programs and SSI, as well as they can do that sometimes with us. So I'll leave it there on that one. But so right now, before we lower the threshold, we've had residential single family customers at 1,000, and we've had commercial customers at 500. And in the past, we've always had the same threshold for everyone. And we're going back to that because just given where we are, especially with small businesses, they can't afford to have their bill get too high any more than a residential customer can. So I think that $300 threshold is to the benefit of it's not a bureau benefit. Honestly, it is, how do we keep our customers from getting too far in debt? And if we allow them, if we set it at 500, I've had people say, set it at 1,000. My gosh, do you understand that when someone is once a person gets $1,000 in debt, if they are already experiencing issues with their income, you're basically putting them in a hole. But at 300, even at 600, maybe if they doubled in some way, you can help a person back out of that. Give them a $500 crisis voucher. We can work through those. But so we don't have a distinction between commercial and residential or different types of commercial customers necessarily. But I will say we are starting to look at how we deal with those customers differently, because they have different needs. And I have the mindset that all of our customer segments should not be treated the same. And we need to understand the problems and the things that we need to solve for them. So we are starting to dig into that a little bit more. We're starting to work more and do some more work around our top, those top 100 customers that are, who use the most. And so, yeah, there's some more work that we're going to do there. So right now, yes, they're all the same. I think,
Great.
was that all your questions, Alexis? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it was. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I just on the data piece, and as we start to think through like Pub's role in advising on the transition for government and things, that might be something fellow Pub members that we could highlight there. And then thank you for the explanation on the commercial and residential, and look forward to seeing kind of the future of the pricing discount and also segmentation of customer types.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions for our guests today? Anyone that hasn't got the chance to speak up yet?
Oh.
I know that I did have one final question, actually, and that was just trying to, because it looks like the Bureau is attempting to take a compassionate view when it comes to shutoffs, and so I was wondering, with excessive heat risk due to climate change, has the Bureau navigated or thought about essentially minimizing shutoffs during the hottest months of the year when those heat risks are?
We have had some conversation about this, particularly, I don't know if you're familiar with the adaptive planning process. I don't know if you all have heard about that or not, but it's a process that is specifically looking at the impacts of climate change and how we can be more climate resilient through this. And so, in fact, we've had some of this conversation because we offer our winter moratorium. The challenge on moratoriums is we've got to figure out how we communicate well with customers and educate well around these things, so that when you're doing that, it's not ignore your bill or your payment arrangement, even if you have that in place and we don't do the shut off, because it helps you. And I just know, just even from the past on the electric side, dealing with moratoriums, customers see moratoriums and they think it means I don't have to pay, I don't have to do anything. And then you end up at the end with huge debt. So I think it's how do we proactively educate and engage with them so that you can do that without even having to think about it, right? It's too hot. People need access to water without putting our bureaus in some financial instability, because over time that does build up, and then you put more pressure on customers who are paying their bills, and we increase rates and all these things because we're trying to do these things. So I feel like a lot of this is about us learn, we have the ability, we're going to have the ability to text customers and give them reminders. So I think as we're dealing with some of these things that we know, solutions that will help drive the right behaviors from customers, and we give them the right information and help to educate, then I would love to have that be in place, right? Because climate change is going to bring all types of differences for how we run our system, how we engage with our customers, and our ability to how we deal with disconnects, all these things. We are having to rethink it. So it's a long answer. It's to say, yes, we are, but we're trying to balance it with how do we educate customers so that we don't put them in a worse situation.
All right, so any final questions, Pub members? Well, as always, we thank both of our presenters today for coming and sharing with us. And we always are willing to send follow-up questions. So any board members that
Yes.
have extra questions, please pass them along. Any information is good. And with that, I think we'll actually move on to our next part of our discussion today, which is actually co-chairing and possibly just co-chairing and a couple other budget topics. So give me just a second.
Robin, this is Amy. If you'd like, I can introduce the topic a little bit and maybe give just a little bit of reminder and history. And I see Karen has joined us, so I certainly encourage you to step in as well. So typically the pub has two co-chairs. The benefits of that are kind of a combination of sharing the work as well as having multiple perspectives. And just as they're setting agendas and leading conversations, typically the way the pub started is they staggered the terms of those co-chairs so that they were typically 2-year appointments. The first time there was a 1-year appointment and a 2-year appointment, so that then each year you had some changeover in leadership as well, so that you're getting, fresh perspective in the leadership role, as well as maintaining some consistency in that leadership role and somebody who's been doing it for the prior year. Our cycle got a little skewed because of timing of people's terms, kind of the changeover in the number of pub members who were new. And so Karen has graciously served as co-chair now for I think a full 2 years, and ending just this last June, although she's still kind of helping out in that role during this transition period into the new fiscal year, because it always has a little bit of overlap before new folks are appointed. Robin was appointed just 6 months ago, and just with a 6-month term as co-chair, only because Robin's term ended in the end of June and needed to be reappointed for the additional term in order to have a longer term. So, as you know, Robin has indicated an interest and willingness to volunteer to be reappointed as co-chair. So that's one item before the pub today. And then if there's anybody else in the group who wants to step up and fill that second seat, then we welcome any other volunteers who want to put their name in the hat as well today and or in the future. So even if it doesn't happen today, at any point, we welcome additional volunteers into that role to help share that work. Any questions from the group or discussion? Or we can, at some point, welcome a motion from somebody, at least regarding the one volunteer, if we don't have a second. Chris?
I can do the motion if any. I move to recommend that Robin to the mayor as to be appointed as co-chair.
I second.
Did we start voting?
So Robin, you would be first up if you want to vote or abstain.
Should we have public comment first before we vote?
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Karen. Any discussion? or public comment? I think Robin is frozen at the moment. I know we lost her video, so, but we do still have a quorum. So why don't we go to Chris?
I vote yes. This is Chris Richard. Lorraine, you're up.
Lorraine Wilson, I vote yes.
Bob Salinger, I vote yes.
Alexis Rife, I vote yes.
Julia DeGraw, I vote yes.
Karen Williams, voting member, votes yes. And I did get a text from Robin that she lost internet, so I'm sure she's coming back as soon as she can, but that might not be right away if indeed her internet is down. Maybe she'll try and sign on with her phone or something.
All right, so I'm taking from the silence that nobody else is wanting to step up and jump into the co-chair role, but I would encourage you, if it's something that you would even consider in the future, to please reach out to me or one of the former co-chairs. If you have any questions, we can share information with you about what it takes to do that work and some of the benefits as well as the work involved. And in the absence of that, we will operate with just one co-chair until we get to the point that we have a second volunteer. With that in mind, we also would probably welcome folks like Chris, who has volunteered to help facilitate on occasion. So if there's anybody else who's interested in kind of stepping up just in a support role, let me know as well, because then as anything comes up, we can certainly reach out to you. Right. I think we're still waiting for Robin to reconnect, but I will move on to the next topic then in the interim. And I'll go ahead and introduce this as well. So every year at the beginning of the new fiscal year, typically it's when you have new members. And so there's also an engagement of new membership as well as folks who are continuing to serve. And a couple of the things that are on the agenda to do, in addition to the co-chair recommendation, is to just review the bylaws and the beliefs, values, and anti-racist principles to ensure that they align with your interests for the coming year, identify whether there's any revisions that are required, and then adopt either the current version or a revised version, or identify if there are substantial changes that are needed, identify if a subcommittee needs to be formed to delve into that any further. So I don't know if folks have had a chance to review those documents. Most of you were all engaged over the past year when more substantial changes were made to both the bylaws as well as the most recent change to the values and anti-racist principles statement. So they are relatively recent that changes were adopted. I do not have anything as staff. We typically, as issues come up during the year, will flag it for a future revision list. And I don't have anything currently that hasn't already been addressed. So I'll open the floor for anybody who And Robin, I think you are back online, so I will also hand the floor back to you and just let you know that during your absence, the motion was moved, seconded, and passed of recommending you as being reappointed as co-chair.
Well, that is good news. Did anyone else throw in there? We'll convince one of you.
So
Thank you.
Robin, you're pretty, it's
But yeah,
pretty
actually,
hard to
for this
hear
portion,
you. Oh, just, yeah, letting you know, Robin, your audio is, yeah, really sketchy. So yeah, maybe turning off your camera might help. Oh, maybe that,
yeah. So,
there we go.
are you able to hear me clearly now?
It's better with your video off. Yep.
Okay. So with this, I had a question rather than co-hosting. I know that we had tried to do like a switch in quorum without changing the bylaws. And to my understanding, that's not really very feasible. Would right now be the time to vote for a quorum change if we did want it? And is that possible?
So this is Amy, and that's a good point, Robin. I put the update about quorum later on in the announcements, but it is important to discuss prior to this conversation. So the quorum is actually defined in the code itself. So you can't really change the bylaws without changing the code. So a code change is just a more onerous process. And it's up to the pub whether you would want to pursue a code change to change the quorum. Hopefully it's just an interim period that we're talking about, but right now the quorum would remain at 6 without a code change. And that would mean in order for decision making to take place, you would need at least 6 voting members. Ideally, you want 6 members in order to start a meeting. In absence of the 6 members, we could in this interim period operate slightly differently and consider that if there were fewer than 6, but the content was still worthy of receiving information, having some discussion take place, that it could operate almost more like a temporary subcommittee for that meeting, and no formal decision making could take place. It would have to go back to the full board at a subsequent meeting where there was a full quorum. So I think there are workarounds to not changing the quorum and trying to make it work. Ideally, at least having 6 to start the meeting at the beginning of every meeting is the best case scenario, but we can work around it. Karen.
So this is Karen Williams, and in my review of our governing documents, mostly the bylaws and the values and anti-racist principles, I mean, nothing jumped out at me as something that we need to change or amend or add to for our immediate future, but there were plenty of things also reflected in code. So this gets to the quorum question that, we're going to need to change after depending on how it all shakes out after the transition to a new form of city government. And that's, I guess, probably one of those obvious statements, but so it seemed to me like it would be, I am comfortable with that caveat, adopting these or readopting or these documents today, but also with the recognition that the hopefully the subcommittee that we put together to work on transition issues and recruitment, it would also be kind of within the scope of that subcommittee to look at what bylaws and well, yeah, mostly bylaws and code changes would be recommended once we have a better idea what pub's going to look like, you know, in a year or so. So I guess with that introduction, I would move to adopt the current version of our the current version of our bylaws and beliefs, values, and anti-racist principles.
Second, this is Chris Richard.
All right, in absence of any further discussion, it's been moved and seconded. So I open the floor for public comment. All right, I don't see any hands raised, so let's move through the voting, starting with Robin.
This is Robin. I vote yes.
This is Chris Richard. I vote yes.
Lorraine Wilson, yes.
Bob Salinger, yes.
Alexis Rife, yes.
Julia DeGraw, I vote yes.
Karen Williams voting yes.
All right, motion passes. So I will move on to announcements and quickly run through these. So quorum, I think you just provided the feedback on in the prior conversation. I will keep you updated if I get any additional information, but we'll continue operating as discussed until such time that there's more substantial changes with charter change and there'll be more discussion with the full board. Wanted to just point out to folks calendar invites. If you haven't noticed them come through on your email, just want to make sure that you receive them with the changeover in staff and the start of the new fiscal year. There were a couple meetings that kind of fell into the end or the beginning of this fiscal year, but I've created new meeting requests, so they're new links. They're not the same as the prior ones. So there's one link for Tuesday meetings, one link for Thursday meetings. So just watch your inbox for that information. And of course, that information will also be sent out with emails and agendas as well. So just wanted to make sure you weren't using old links or you'll be sitting in a waiting room that doesn't exist. Also, just a reminder, at this time of year, we do some of the bio updates for the new reappointments and the co-chair appointments. And so I'm still waiting on a couple of those, but we'll get those submitted. But I just want to remind everybody that it's also a good time of year that if there's anything that's changed in your circumstances and the information that's on our website could use a refresh where it describes your background and biography, please just let me know. That can be updated anytime, but just annually we take a look at that and make sure that I update the website. So that will be happening shortly. So let me know. Thank you to the folks who responded and volunteered for administrative review committees. We did get a volunteer for August and December. So there's just a few more months left in the upcoming months that we still need volunteers. So let me know if you want to step into one of those slots. You can just shoot me an email or reach out by phone. I did want to let folks know that the stipends that we processed, I think I had let folks know that the central folks were going to be suspending prepaid cards at the end of June, but we thought that we would be able to get approval in for those who requested prepaid cards since we had met that deadline but I received notice that they were not approved and that we would need to go through traditional payment process. I've asked for some reconsideration and provide some additional information. So that's why I haven't reached out to those of you directly yet, but I did want to give you a heads up that you may have a request for additional information. And just for, as we do those moving forward in the next year, likely it will be through the standard payment process. Unfortunately, I know it was important to Pub to provide this other option that was a little bit easier as far as what you need to provide to the city. But because it's easier, I think it raises some concerns for tracking for the city and folks who serve on multiple committees and whether they're being paid by different committees and might exceed some thresholds that are required for tax reporting. So until all those issues have been worked out, they are not approving that option. So those of you who had requested that, I'll be sending you some additional information as soon as I get the final denial of my request. Also, just wanted to give you a heads up to watch for an email. I'll be sending out links to the presentation that Water Bureau has made to City Council. Some of you may have received some of those links directly if you're on some of the media lists for the filtration plant, but I'll send one out just to the board that will be part of the preparation for one of the main agenda items in August. But in order to avoid taking the full meeting time for a presentation that they've already made in a recorded form, I'll send you that video recording so that the meeting time can focus on questions and discussion. And if there is any presentation, then it would be briefer, hopefully. That was a lot in the form of announcements. Is there anything else from the group? Something that I've missed? Lorraine, yes.
I just wanted to find out if we are doing anything this summer that would bring us together. I know last year we did the tour of the facility, and I'm just curious if there is anything like that planned for this good weather. I'm not a cold person, Tora. I'm just letting it be known.
No, that's a great question, Lorraine. And we do not have anything planned currently, but certainly open to that. So I can explore options with the bureaus and the co-chair. And we can see whether that is a possibility. Certainly welcome the opportunity to meet with folks in person. It would be great to see folks and have a chance to connect. It was a great opportunity at the treatment plant last year. So I will put that on the list of near future potential topics for the future. And Robin, if you're back on, do you want to take this piece or do you want me to just keep going?
My computer seems to be kind of going in and out, so I'm gonna let you finish it up today.
Okay. So just on the agenda, as I mentioned, for the first meeting in August is the filtration plant update. The presentation information will be coming out. And then we'll figure out how much meeting time is needed for that. And just wanted to open the floor for the membership to either prioritize or identify some other near future potential topics. The in-person tour opportunity is a great one, so I'll add that to the list. We do have some required work coming up in August, September, which is doing the annual report and work plan and formalizing that in a document. So that's something that I'll be working on in the coming weeks and getting drafts or early drafts out to folks, but certainly we'll also be collecting information from all of you as far as what priorities you want to make sure are highlighted in the annual report, but that's something that we'll have to dedicate some meeting time to. And then I have this other running list as we are going to begin some early budget work earlier this year, and anything else that folks see as a priority. Karen.
I think it would, this is Karen Williams. I think it would be timely to at least start our conversations in August about the charter transition vision future of advisory committee. It does seem like we're operating on, we're pretty thin here over the next few months. If we just have one co-chair, we, obviously we haven't fully acknowledged that we have one staff where, we used to have two. So I think it would be good for us to sort of acknowledge the reality that we've shrunk and start looking at how we resource the work for the transition, for the recruitment. And I'm guessing that's going to be more than one meeting's conversations. And it looks like maybe we have time for that in August. If other folks think that's a relevant and timely topic, I'd like to get that out there.
See some thumbs up for that.
Yeah, I'll just second that. That's kind of one of my top priorities for us to start tackling. And it's linked to pub recruitment, as Karen just alluded to.
Great. All right, with that, I think, oh, Julia, you have your hand up. Did
Yeah,
I
I do
miss
have a-
something? Sorry.
I have a super quick question, which is, that was a really good reminder that Karen just brought up. Is that a permanent change? Just one staff person to support the pub, or is there just a hiring process that has not been completed yet?
It is not a planned permanent change, but I think there's a lot that is unknown. So the guidance that I've received so far has been to put on hold a little bit. And so I've increased my hours to try to, manage the core logistics, see how things continue to move forward. As the charter transition, the pub recruitment, as these other things kind of coalesce, it will make it easier to identify the right skill set and staffing level for what the board will look like moving forward. So I think I'm still keeping options open, but there hasn't been any formal decision, and certainly will welcome feedback from the group in whatever comes next.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. So with that, I will officially bring the meeting to a close and wish you all a wonderful July. Let me stop the recording.